Good afternoon and welcome back to The Stump. My name is Rick Barton and I'm joined today by Allen Jarboe. Allen, would you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Attorney at law in the state of Illinois, CPA. I've been a career CFO for the last 25 years, and I love it. It's a great job. It's a great profession.
Great, great. I'm the president and CEO of Barton Performance Group, a human resources consulting company that specializes in training and business performance. And I mentioned to welcome to The Stump, and The Stump is just a place where friends and colleagues come to talk about different business topics and issues and opportunities. Today's topic is going to be performance management. So what do you think about that, Allen?
I think it's great. It's a big topic. I don't know how to, I'll try to define it first, right? Because I operate 25 years in doing it, but not really understanding what's the academic definition of it. So it's really the process of ensuring that a set of activities and outputs meets an organization's goals in an effective and efficient manner. Typically, we think of it as annual performance evaluations.
Absolutely. And many times when people say the word performance management, you get like this type thing because there's so much anxiety around it. And you think about the process itself, it's a cycle. It's where an organization defines the DNA of its people, how to get the people aligned to performance against goals, aligned with vision and mission. And it starts with that planning process. There's an interim review process, and then the end of cycle review. Those are some major components. Am I missing some pieces there?
Well, I think some of the other elements here, and this might be repeating what you said in a different way, that there are many elements that go into it, right? But you can break it down into 3 to 5, and here are kind of my 5. Planning and goal setting, management and employee involvement, monitoring and feedback, development and improvement, and then reward and compensation.
Excellent, excellent. So what makes this whole process so frustrating or difficult for either the employee, leaders, or leaders of the organization?
I think, right, I think that's the process of the way most people operate them are pretty antiquated. Right? You think of these as annual performance evaluations. You have an employee file. You're jotting down throughout the year what someone's doing well, what they could be doing better, and then leading up to an annual review that's tied to oftentimes a performance increase. And I'll tell you what, from my perspective too, I not look forward to doing them, to be honest. Right? Because who keeps a file of what everyone's doing great and could be doing better throughout the year when we're busy? And then you get down to write those out and you end up doing it in the evening. It's almost like grading papers in high school. It's the worst part of the job. So instead, I haven't done an annual performance evaluation in a long time. I try to think of them more like a continuous improvement cycle. Right. In fact, I just read an article from Harvard Business Review. It was talking about a company that had done away with this back in 2002. And it was just, it was a shock to the organization. But what they do is think of it more as, providing a cycle of instant feedback, tying it to the employee's own personal goals, and then handing out small weekly bonuses to the employees they saw doing things well. And now it's estimated that more than 1/3 of U.S. companies are doing it that way.
Absolutely. I was just going to ask, how has it shifted in the last 10 years on performance reviews? How's that whole performance management cycle changed, at least from your perspective?
It's a great question. It's hard to identify it, over a course of time. What I think of, again, is salespeople, for example. You set up monthly commissions, right? So you're calculating a monthly commission based on their goals, new accounts, existing accounts. It can be done a number of ways. It gets calculated and awarded each month. For operating employees, such as in the factory, administrative staff, maybe their monthly bonuses tied to their own goals that they set for themselves, corporate goals, that are set by the company or the manager. And then you have KPIs that are set up to measure that each month, or could be quarterly. And then talking about it on a regular basis. Is it working? Is it not working? Is it simple? Again, the goal is these should be awful simple to deploy and to manage and to change in real time.
I agree. And what I heard is really there's a couple different keys that are going to drive success, and that is communication. How much communication is out there? Are people clear about the cycle? And then are they giving feedback to how's this person performing against the job description, against organizational goals, sales goals, or whatever goals they have? And then how are they demonstrating company values? How are they demonstrating that, that they have sound judgment, or they're embracing diversity, or whatever the organizational values are? How are they demonstrating those? I think one other key would be, how transparent is the process? Or is this a weigh and measure type process? Or is this something that people understand when the cycle begins, and they also know how to recognize the achievements at the end of the cycle? Not a, like I said before, not a weighing and measure cycle. If you were to say, or provide some recommendations to what would help an average employee or leader in managing the performance management process, what would be your recommendations?
I think to start with, I would have employees largely set their own goals. And ideally, they should tie into a company's overall goals, right? Because if they're the employees' goals, they have more of a chance of taking ownership of it, instead of feeling like these are the company's goals, or this is what my manager wants me to do. And it's important, again, there's a lot of other company level characteristics that feed into this, right? So it feeds into accountability, company culture, right? Employees largely should want to be accountable for their own actions and performance for these to even work, right? Because if they're not, even if they set their own goals, they may not want to be accountable for that if it's not met.
Absolutely. I think it's also important to say that this process is a two-way process. It's a communication process between the employee and the leader, or the leader and the organization, to talk about where are we. And it's not you're just showing up to the meeting to kind of hear what box you've been put into based on observations of others, but it's really a two-way dialogue to say, here's what I think, or here's where I think I am. And then also to be able to identify those gaps in performance. Where were those missed opportunities or those growth opportunities that we can address in the next cycle?
I agree. That two-way communication is really important.
Okay, we've talked a lot about performance management in a short amount of time. What type of closing thoughts do you have on the topic?
I would encourage managers and companies as a whole to think of these as more of a continuous cycle, and to have them be forward looking, right? Because performance evaluations tend to be backward looking, maybe set some very generic forward looking goals, but they may not be too actionable, or a little too abstract. So think about converting it to a more of a continuous cycle and a continuous improvement process.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Nice job today on performance management. A lot of little nuggets in here. I'd be curious to hear from our other listeners and viewers to see what are their thoughts on performance management. What are some of those best practices that are out there, and to kind of chime in with some of their thoughts. Thanks for joining me today, Alan, and we'll talk again this next week.
Thanks for having me, Rick. Talk to you next week.
All right, bye.